Hello and welcome. This is Lita Downs from the Center for Faculty Excellence here at Walden University, and I would like to welcome you to today's paper presentation, Faculty Satisfaction Teaching Online in the Time of COVID-19 Virus Pandemic. On the line today, we have Dr. Deanna Howe, who is joining us from Germany, I must say. So welcome, Dr. Howe. And we have Dr. Carrie Heitner welcoming and presenting from the wonderful state of Massachusetts, which I bet the leaves are starting to change. Before I hand things over to them, I am going to go over a few housekeeping items. In the lower left-hand corner, there's an audio settings function if you need to adjust your audio, if you need to increase it, etc., or toggle to your phone from computer, you can do so there. There is also a chat box that's going to be monitored throughout the session. Questions will probably be answered towards the end unless some can be answered throughout, but please make sure to enter any questions or comments you have in the chat box, and Drs. Howe and Heitner will address those. There is closed captioning. If you want to use that function, you could just click on the CC box on the bottom. Finally, we have an option where you can zoom in. I know we have some data that's going to be shared today, so you may want to use that option to zoom in, or if you need to get to another screen, you can exit this full screen mode by selecting the View Options choice. At this point, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Deanna Howe and Dr. Carrie Heitner. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Dr. Deanna Howe, as mentioned, calling in from Germany, is a professor at Albany State University. She's also a contributing faculty member here at Walden University in our nursing department. She has listed some contact information, so if you do have any questions outside of this presentation, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Howe. Dr. Carrie Heitner is also a contributing faculty member here at Walden University in the PhD Management Program. Welcome, and now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carrie Heitner, or I'm sorry, Dr. Deanna Howe.
That's okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Dr. Heitner and I are happy to be here with you today and to share the results of a recent study that we completed regarding faculty satisfaction teaching online during the time of COVID-19. I'm sure we've all been affected by that COVID-19. There is likely no one here today in our world, or in our world for that matter, who has not been affected by COVID-19 and that need to quarantine in place for months on end. I know we're all ready to get finished with this and move on with a regular life if we can ever get one. So this virus pandemic became pretty well known in February of this year, and this sent many university leaders scrambling to adjust and to ensure that their students were able to continue learning. This meant a very quick movement for course content to the online format. For my institution specifically, we're located in South Georgia. The quarantine in place order came at the same time as spring break. So we kind of had that 1 week of, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And then we delayed another 1 week of restarting the semester for a total of 2 weeks to prepare for that online transition. Many of our faculty in the United States and worldwide were required to make this transition with little to no experience teaching online. And some faculty may have been feeling a lot of anxiety at that time. I'm sure that most of us who are very experienced teaching online felt little pain, but you may have been asked to jump in and help out with some of your fellow faculty members meet the new challenge. My university created a group of online faculty coaches, and we helped all the others in the migration during the initial 2 weeks, and they even paid us, so that was kind of a good little bonus. So the study we are sharing today is a follow-up to a 2014 study of 185 nursing faculty teaching online across the U.S. In addition, there was a pilot study conducted with a homogeneous sample of 26 general education faculty from my university for the specific purposes of validating that faculty satisfaction teaching online instrument. You all should have gotten a copy of that instrument in the presentation files. So after the spread of COVID-19 virus affected the whole world, and reading about the frenzied state of higher education, conducting the current study seemed like another attempt to better understand satisfaction teaching online, but on a more global scale. Advance the slide, please. Advance the slide, please. Thank you. So for the current study, we had a purposive sample of faculty from the US and abroad who had taught at least one fully online course during COVID-19 and were fluent in English. Participants could have taught any kind of course on any topic from any university in the world, higher education specifically. We advertised for student participation using social media sites such as Facebook and LinkedIn, and we posted on our personal pages in each of these, and also in Facebook groups like the Higher Education Learning Collective, Higher Ed and the Coronavirus. We also posted in Higher Education Professionals group and Higher Education Forum. We also used our LinkedIn and posted on our personal pages, and also posted in the Nurse Educators and on a Distant Learning Professionals page. So in addition, faculty from my home institution were sent an email request for participation, and here at Walden University, we posted the request in the participant pool and with the Centers for Faculty Excellence blog. And this study was approved, IRB approved by both Albany State University and Walden University. For this study, we had a grand total of 11 independent variables, which we'll go through during the results section, and the independent variable faculty satisfaction teaching online. Advance the slide, please. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about the instrument. So I originally created this instrument in 2014 for the purposes of that nurse faculty study. But I started initially with a pilot study to test it. So there's 3 parts to the survey. So the first part is the demographic section. For this study, Dr. Heitner and I added a few questions to better capture the information of our new participants. For example, we wanted to know which country the faculty members' primary teaching online occurred, and what was the primary language used to teach. We also wanted to understand the participants' teaching experience. So we asked how many years had the participant taught face-to-face courses, how many fully online courses had they taught total, and have they ever taught a fully online course prior to COVID-19 pandemic? And lastly, what percentage of courses were taught fully online prior to COVID-19? In the second part of the survey, we asked just 6 questions and wanted to know if participants had ever received support services to teach online, and the responses should have been either a yes or a no. In the final part of the survey, we included 21 items for rating satisfaction teaching online, which were extrapolated from the initial literature review and included aspects that you may be familiar with, such as teaching online with student interaction and feedback, administrative and technical support, competency, self-efficacy, collaboration, quality of teaching, and flexibility. Each item on the FSTO, which is the shortened term for that, would use a 5-point Likert scale from a 1, which was highly dissatisfied, to a 5 of highly satisfied. And we use that to measure the overall satisfaction teaching online. We did conduct validity and reliability several times, actually. Internal consistency reliability for the initial 20 items that were used in the pilot study and the nurse faculty study were measured by Cronbach's alpha and were 0.895 and 0.94 respectively. For the current study, it had 21 items, and that additional item is the last item on the survey, which asked for satisfaction with teaching online in the semesters affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So the Cronbach's alpha for this new survey was 0.940, which indicates that this instrument is reliable for use in a diverse population of higher education faculty. Also, before the pilot study, I had 3 experts, and so this is back in 2014, I had 3 experts with experience in instrument construction and testing evaluate the content validity and qualitative face validity of the instrument. Experts evaluated each item for clarity, appropriateness, and relevance to that concept of satisfaction and used in a 4-point ordinal Likert type scale. There was congruence among all 3 raters for the questions, scoring a 1.0 for representativeness, a 1.0 for relevance, and a 0.88 for clarity. Face validity also happened. The content experts provided a quantitative face validity in the areas of ease of use, readability, and understandability. And all 3 raters were congruent again with a 1.0 for all criteria. And lastly, I asked the pilot study participants in 2014 to evaluate the survey questions for face validity as well, using a 4-point Likert type scale and rating each question for ease of use, readability, and understandability. And results for a 0.96 for all 3 of use, readability, and understandability. Advance the slide, please. So the survey was created and hosted on Qualtrics. So we included a link in the request for participation, and this led directly to the informed consent. The consent had to be selected as a yes, that they wanted to participate in order to access the survey. If someone selected no, they were just booted right on out. So participation was anonymous. There was no personal identifying data that was collected, and we didn't even collect IP addresses. The survey was open for just under 3 months. We started in early May and ended in early August, and we collected 251 surveys. Statistical tests for this study included descriptive, independent t-tests, and one-way analysis of variance. Advance the slide, please. So now we get into some of our results for demographics. So you will note on this slide that participants' geographic location included just over 80% from the United States, but we did have a total of just under 20% that came from outside of the United States. Dr. Heitner was contacted by a very enthusiastic participant who distributed the request to participants, to colleagues in Brazil. So that's how we ended up with this higher, our second highest number of 14 participants, or a 5%. That was the second highest in our group for our study. Also, probably because I reside here in Germany, I live in a really robust university town, and one of my American professors teaching here saw my Facebook announcement and shared with her colleagues. And so we ended up with having 7 participants from Germany, or about 4.8%. And it was really great to see the social media campaign working in real time. Other countries we noted were Canada, United Kingdom, we had France, Japan, Spain, Dominica, Ireland. We also had the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Qatar, South Africa, Trinidad and Tobago, and the United Arab Emirates. So it was so nice to see how far our survey traveled virtually. Primarily, we had English speakers, nearly 93%, and a large Portuguese-speaking group. That's that group out of Brazil, which was 6%. Other languages included 1 each of German, Spanish, and Latin. Advance the slide, please. So now we're going to look at the total satisfaction score. So we had a total of 251 surveys collected, but 1 survey had a missing item, which is why we only had 250 surveys for the total satisfaction score. It is interesting that this 1 survey made it through, because I had set the system to delete any incomplete surveys, but you know how technology goes, something sometimes always runs amiss, but we were happy to have that survey. But that 1 missing value from that survey was the item about satisfaction with technical competence. So as you can tell on this table, we were looking at the total satisfaction. So to determine the satisfaction score, we added each participant's score for a total of 21. So for a score as low, if they scored all 1s on the survey, it would have been as low as a 21. Or if they'd scored all 5s, it would have been as high as 105. On this table, you can see that the number of participant total satisfaction score by category of a low, a moderate, or a high. Results indicated our participants had an overall high level of satisfaction teaching online with a mean of 75.33. The median satisfaction ratings for questions 14 through 34 showed little variance with the median and the mode for most items equaling 4. Some notable differences included a median of 3, which is a middle score, for items that reflected collaboration, time available to create a new online course, and time available for course management and transition from teaching face-to-face to online. I think we all know that it does take a whole lot more work to create a new course, and that time needed to do that is essential, but most of us don't have that baked into our faculty time. Another notable difference did include the modes of 5, or a high score, for items that reflect flexibility and convenience teaching online during this time. I know for me, flexibility and convenience are highly treasured and important, and this may be the same for you as well. Advance the slide, please. So here we conducted independent t-tests for the demographic question responses. So faculty whose primary role was located in the United States had significantly higher total satisfaction scores than faculty who taught primarily outside of the United States. This may primarily be because the US seems to have embraced online teaching more readily than other countries. This is purely an anecdotal notion of mine at this time. I can say that here in Germany, online courses are not very common. My American professor friends had to learn how to do everything very quickly and on their own with no support. And I was really impressed at how, with just a few of them, how quickly they adapted to the new environment. So more than half of our sample had taught fully online courses prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Faculty who taught fully online courses prior to COVID-19 had significantly higher satisfaction scores than faculty who did not teach fully online courses prior to COVID-19. This finding may show that those with prior experience teaching online felt little to no role change, and thus were better able to adapt to the changes that had to be made in the online course as a result of COVID-19. Because of our short little 2-week break, like I only had to alter my syllabus and the due dates for discussions and assignments, so this wasn't very difficult for me. And so many of you, if you were already teaching online and this came along, you probably didn't feel much of an effect either of that change. Please advance the slide. Okay, so one way I know of our demographics. So we asked the number of years having taught courses. I'm sorry, I'm on the right slide. Make sure, slide 10. Okay, so we asked the number of years having taught courses face-to-face. We had a fairly experienced group with over 81% having taught 6 or more years. So as you can tell, we have 4 categories: 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, 11 to 20 years, and 20 plus years. So there was no significant difference in total satisfaction found by the years of experience teaching face-to-face courses using the initial 4 categories, or when we combine the middle ranges of years of experience to 6 to 20 years. This finding is similar to the 2014 nurse faculty study, and the lack of significance in this area may just be due to factors such as teaching skills, speed of technical adoption, and that digital language familiarity. We also looked at the number of courses taught online. This table shows the raw numbers of participants per categories. There were 4 categories: 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, 11 to 20 years, and 20 plus years. As you can see, more than half of our participants taught between 1 and 5 courses. Testing revealed that total satisfaction was significantly higher for faculty who taught 20 or more courses online than for faculty who taught 1 to 5 courses or faculty who taught 6 to 10 courses online. Total satisfaction was significantly higher for faculty who taught 11 to 20 courses online than for faculty in the 1 to 5 courses online. This result is also consistent with the 2014 nurse faculty study. There was no significant differences found for satisfaction between the other faculty groups 1 to 5 and 6 to 10, or from 6 to 10 and 11 to 20, or between faculty who taught 11 to 20 or 20 plus courses. These differences indicate that experience is a factor in online teaching. So repetition of teaching online courses allows for faculty to identify strategies that are successful or unsuccessful, technology that works or doesn't work, and experiences that make each subsequent course that you teach less difficult. Advance the slide. All right, so here we looked at the percentage of online courses having taught prior to COVID-19. As you can see in the table, a significant number of our participants taught less than 25% of courses online prior to COVID-19. We didn't add a category for 0, which in retrospect, maybe we should have, so that we could determine, maybe the participants had no online courses, no experience with online courses prior to COVID-19. ANOVA revealed a significant difference in total satisfaction by the percent of face-to-face versus online courses taught prior to COVID-19. Total satisfaction was significantly lower for the faculty who prior to COVID-19 taught less than that 25%. Versus faculty who prior to COVID-19 taught 26 to 50% of their courses online. There was also no significance in differences for the total satisfaction between faculty who taught less than 25 of their courses and those who taught 51 to 75%. And there was also no significant differences found between faculty who taught 26 to 50% of their courses online and the other categories of 51 to 75 or 76. The inexperienced group of faculty may have felt the effects of this unexpected role transition, and that urgency to create the online courses and ready them for immediate student accessibility could have created anxiety and frustration, thus resulting in that lower satisfaction teaching online score. Advance the slide, please. So in this table, this is just a descriptive statistics to show that for the questions regarding support services. And so here we asked the participants to note if they had the support services, yes or no. And here you can tell for all the categories, the results show that more participants receive support services except for release time for course management construction. That seemed to be the biggest hang up, that most people don't, most faculty don't receive release time to prepare courses. Advance the slide. So now we're going to get into the meat of the study, which was the actual support services received. So we did independent t-tests to compare the satisfaction scores for faculty who received it or didn't receive the support services. So faculty who received mentoring support to teach online had significantly higher total satisfaction scores than faculty who did not receive the support. So mentoring, as most of us know, or I've had it myself and it's been wonderful. It provides that necessary support to assist faculty as they transition from a traditional classroom teaching to an online teaching environment. I've been teaching online for over a decade now, and my initial training that I received was very extensive. I started with the University of Phoenix, and the online training to become a faculty member with them was the most intense process of a month I've ever been through, but it was phenomenal. And then when I transitioned to work part-time here with Walden University, did the same thing. It was a wonderful environment, a couple weeks long, that we have to go through in order to teach online. And that support is really fundamental in helping us, develop as online teachers. Mentors serve as a guide, a coach, a role model, and they help faculty take on the new challenge of teaching online. Research has shown that there's a positive correlation between mentoring and faculty satisfaction. So for faculty who receive release time for course preparation and management, they also had a significantly higher total satisfaction score than faculty who did not release this. So several factors could influence teaching productivity, to include time for that online course development. So in the literature review, faculty did note it takes much more time to create an online courses versus a traditional course. For me, I feel that same way. It takes a tremendous amount of time to make sure you tick all the boxes. And also, time is affected by the newness of technology. Administrators may benefit from discussing this issue of course construction and management with experienced faculty, just to better understand that need for the release time. Experienced online faculty may be able to help determine appropriate amounts of time for specific activities. So in this third category, faculty who receive technical support services for software and hardware in the role of online teaching had significantly higher total satisfaction scores than faculty who did not receive those supports. This finding may be a result of basic knowledge of computers and common programs used in day-to-day teaching. For example, Microsoft programs such as Word and PowerPoint, those may be used daily by faculty who teach in a traditional classroom setting, but yet they may or may not be a challenge to use when you transition to the online teaching. It is important to note that because of the fast-paced changes in technological programs and the need to stay updated, faculty should have ongoing technical support. Advance the slide. Okay, in our final three categories here, the first is we looked at the faculty who received technical support services for the learning management system, and they had a significantly higher score satisfaction than faculty who did not receive that. So technical support staff is generally used to provide that expert assistance needed by faculty to navigate through those unexpected challenges that occur with technology. Administrators should also be aware of that technical need that faculty teaching online have. So faculty who receive formal or informal training for software and hardware beyond the learning management system in the role of online teaching had significantly higher total satisfaction scores than faculty who did not get those supports. And then lastly, the last category, faculty who receive formal or informal training in services related to the learning management system had significantly higher total satisfaction scores than faculty who did not receive those supports. Specific tasks needed to teach in the learning management system, include things like uploading documents, uploading video links, setting up discussion boards, enabling chat, creating an online gradebook, creating rubrics, all these kinds of things that can get a little tedious. But regardless of the ability to teach, faculty members may struggle if there's not a familiarity with this technical requirements that are needed in the learning management system. In my university, we were required to take well, it turned out to be about a month, but an online faculty training, and every faculty who had taught a class online had to take this, and essentially it ended up being the whole university. And I have to tell you, even though I've been teaching for over a decade online, because technology changes so much, we're not always, up to date on everything. So I found a lot of parts of it very challenging, and I was happy to go through because it was a great little refresher. Next slide, please. Okay, so COVID-19, obviously we talked about, is that worldwide phenomenon that has no end in sight. Faculty that are required to teach online during this time or in a hybrid format during this time should have access to support services to maximize teaching potential and also to maximize the student learning potential. Online teaching and learning in higher education have been rapidly expanding in the last decade, with universities providing more course offerings and degrees in an online format to meet student demand for that flexibility in learning. COVID-19 set in motion a need for universities to pivot and for faculty to continue the education process through the online learning. Regardless of the skill level or desire, many faculty were jettisoned into that new way of teaching. Some may have received significant support services in this new role, and others may have received none. The aim for this study was to measure the differences in the faculty satisfaction teaching online between faculty who received support and those who did not receive support, specifically in the time of COVID-19 virus pandemic. So our results show that faculty who received mentoring, administrative support, technical support, and training to teach online reported higher satisfaction than faculty who do not receive those supports to teach online. Limitations of this study pertain to the nature of the self-reported perceived satisfaction teaching online and the inability to measure or infer causality. Another limitation was the purposeless sample and no verification of English fluency. So thinking ahead, future studies may include a closer look at faculty experiences who have never taught any online courses prior to COVID-19, just so we can better understand the specific issues that are pertinent to that quick migration of content online and the need for additional training to strengthen those skills. Dr. Heitner and I are already having the plans to do some focus groups for follow-up studies so that we could get a more qualitative analysis of how faculty perceive teaching online. Advance the slide, please. And finally, here we are, all finished. And this brings our presentation to an end. I thank you for your attentiveness, and we are happy to take your questions. Now's where you applaud.
Yes, a round of applause. Great information. And please, if you have any questions or comments, if you can enter them in the chat, we would greatly appreciate it. I see some may have raised their hands. We can always unmute you as well. Oh, there we go. Dr. Lauk, let me unmute you. There we go. And I think you're muted on your end.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can. Good morning.
Yes.
Thank you. This is so much easier than putting it in the chat box. This has been really fascinating. I've appreciated this presentation. And forgive me if I'm not recalling all of the demographics that you so nicely laid out at the start of this presentation. But as I was listening to you, especially towards the end when you were concluding, I was thinking about, it would be interesting to know if, how do I want to say this, that, so all of these, so did you have any information or make any distinction about the types of classes that your respondents were teaching as they pivoted from teaching in a face-to-face environment to moving online? And if you accounted for that or saw anything interesting about that in the response rates about satisfaction. And maybe that's not satisfaction and it's something about the challenge, right? Because I'm thinking about classes that are clinical or in a lab environment versus more that are reading discussion based.
Yeah, no, we did not collect those types of data. We just focused on, we had selection criteria for the purpose of snowball sampling that included having taught at least one course during the COVID-19 epidemic, self-declare fluency in English, and being a higher ed faculty person, not K-12, but we did not distinguish in terms of courses. We didn't collect those data. We knew the sample would be small. We targeted 250 and we just made it. And so we were afraid that if we narrowed it more, or if we collected those data, we probably in retrospect should have, but we would have had such small numbers in each category, we wouldn't have been able to really do any comparisons of them. but it is an important thing to note for future research, and that is a limitation.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. But I think you also mentioned that you were thinking about qualitative follow-up, and that could be a really interesting area to explore, or to set out a whole new agenda of research. Okay, I'll stop talking.
No, that's okay. I wanted to add anecdotally that, you know, I am a nurse and I work for a nursing department, and my fellow faculty members were challenged with how to meet that clinical portion of nursing. But, you know, the hospital said, nope, time out, no students are coming in here. So we had to rely on a simulation and using computerized teaching at that time. So I am very interested in knowing more about how the students felt about that, because, you know, some were grumbling, and then to see if that could have possibly impacted our pass rates for our RN grads, our registered nurse graduates. So, you know, it's a great question, and we have lots of ideas for follow-up, which is really great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
There is
great
a
study.
question in the chat that I would like to answer, if I may. There's a question about whether or not there was a difference in the number of respondents from the various media. If so, what were they and how did they affect the study? If not, can you explain why? We don't know, because we had an anonymous study. It was a URL linked, the same URL for all of the media. So we do not know where the respondents came from. There was no way of tracking. We could have included a question, you know, how did you hear about this study? But it didn't seem like it was something important to collect at the time. I'm not sure how that would have made a difference in the results. It might not. It might have been an artifact. I'm really not sure. Okay, let me see if there's another. We didn't conduct a factor analysis. We weren't parsing it that way. We were really interested in specific differences in the total satisfaction score by whether or not you received this service, that service, this service, or that service. So we could go back and do a factor analysis if we wanted to break down the variables further and look at satisfaction separately. We could compare the median scores of satisfaction by item. That would be something that is possible to do. That's another thing that we could do if we wanted to break it down further. We were also, quite honestly, under a deadline. We had a journal interested in an article submission, and we had to get the article to them by the end of August. We got the data at the beginning of August, and you know, we did a lot of analyses. We just didn't have time to do further analyses beyond that, but certainly we could go back and look at, consider factor analysis to break down the variables further. I think that the overall sample size wasn't bad at 250. The international sample size wasn't as large as we might have liked. We targeted 50, figuring that was realistic. We had connections with Walden. IRB of record was Albany State, but we also got IRB approval at Walden so we could post to the participant pool. Because of the anonymity, and it wasn't about any one individual institution, we don't know how many respondents were from ASU or Walden. We only know that we had 50 or 51 from the international population. And so ideally, this would have been larger. We could have picked a couple of countries only. For us, I think the difference was that the United States and perhaps Canada are so far beyond the other countries in terms of the development of online education as a widespread phenomenon, that it made sense to look at it internationally versus US. We could consider ways to expand. We could translate the survey into, between us, we have several languages we could translate it into, and also focus on other countries. But at this point, we struggled to get this size sample. It took us 3 months to collect data. So at some point we had to decide what was an acceptable sample size to support the analyses, and we met our minimum for the international portion and went with it. The other thing that I wanted to add is that our follow-up study we're focusing specifically, and Dr. Howe might want to speak to this, on HB, historically Black colleges and universities. And we're looking at the specific challenges that they face in their faculty because of the way those communities of color have been hit harder by COVID-19 and generally have fewer resources than wealthy institutions with large endowments. So that's something that we're focusing on for our first follow-up study. Let's see.
Yeah, I was going to just piggyback that on real quick. We're actually going to focus on the health professions faculty. So we have a number of health professions groups like physical therapy, occupational therapy, respiratory therapy, and then all the nurses. And we're going to focus on that because they're teaching students who are disproportionately affected by COVID-19 by just the fact that they are doing direct patient care. So we thought this would be a good group. And going back to that first questioner, you know, looking at how would these clinicals affect the teaching. Was there another one?
Not in the chats unless I've missed something. I'm looking carefully.
No, I don't see any more. Yes, I don't see any more questions, and I have popped up the references. So hopefully if anyone wanted to take a peek at those, you got to see them. We really appreciate this information, very informative, and it will be placed onto ScholarWorks at the beginning of November. So if you missed any part of the presentation or would like to re-listen to it, that would be fantastic. It will be on ScholarWorks. Thank you so much, Dr. Heitner and Dr. Howe. It's been lovely having you as our first group of speakers today. Please join us. So we have our plenaries, 2 of them, next hour that will be starting. So please check the app, and we look forward to spending the day with you today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.